You know this story. You know the history. You probably can tell these words pretty much by heart from everyone. Everyone
was supposed to be this place of freedom of all these things that were censored and looked down upon in the
everyone.
Well, if you know the history of the world, read your Bible. Read whatever historical account of humanity you hold dear. And what you'll read about is human tyranny. The vast majority of the human beings have lived under the tyranny of despots.
I did say everyone.
Start with a monarchical society in a world of monarchies. A society which was hierarchical, in which people deferred one to another.
America is the first successful republic since Rome. All intervening republics have failed. Everyone seems to agree on this, but looking at European history shows a much more complicated picture. During the American Revolution, there were more than a few republics in Europe. They had been around for centuries. The first, most obvious example is the Dutch Republic. Now, by the late 1700s, the House of Orange had long had a lock on the executive stadtholder position, and the Dutch, though lovers of business, certainly didn't have a problem with noble titles. And then there are the numerous small republics of Italy, older than the Dutch and similarly aristocratic, the most serene Republic of Venice, Genoa, etc. Poland had an elective monarchy, as well as an elected body called the Sejm. But this parliament was ineffective, and Poland was dominated by its neighbors. Prussia and Russia were both absolutist states. Their rulers, Frederick the Great of Prussia and Catherine of Russia, both sought enlightened absolutism. To Poland's west, however, was a very strange situation. Both Hungary and the Holy Roman Empire were elective monarchies, though how elective they were was certainly debatable. Both were dominated by the House of Habsburg, but their claim was challenged as recently as 1740. It's also the best part of the Italia anime. And then there's Britain. 1600s Britain under the Stuart dynasty was truly chaotic, with unification, absolutism, civil war, religious conflict, extremism, persecution, radicalism, a republic, dictatorship, restoration, revolution. The tail end of all these conflicts persisted until 1745, 30 years before the American Revolution. Peter Watkins' 1964 documentary Culloden shows this dynamic very well.
That the act of union with England is a betrayal, because Prince Charles is a Catholic, and I am a Catholic, and the King in London is a Protestant. Because Charles is part Scot, and I am a Scot, and the King in London is a German.
Wednesday, April 16th, 1746. This is the advance battalion of an English government army of 9,000 men and 16 infantry battalions, 3 of which are themselves Scot. A total of 1,300 regular soldiers from the Lowlands, plus, in reserve, the volunteer militias of Stirling, Edinburgh, Dumfries and Glasgow. Charles Edward Stuart, regent claimant to the thrones of England and Scotland, has more Scots in arms against him than for him.
What I've described here isn't complicated. It could be a map and a section within a history textbook, middle or high school. Now, 1600s Britain really does deserve a chapter all on its own. It's where both the Puritans and John Locke came from at either ends of the century. This is a big deal. The fact is, history academics, rightfully, complain that Eurocentrism leaves the rest of the world a people without history who are condemned to barbarism and tyranny. U.S. history, in its desire to focus on the American Revolution as a sacred and unique event in world history, they do that to European history too. And that is a serious mistake, and it's born out of ignorance. What I presented in this video is a viable engaging alternative that goes outside of all sorts of paradigms. American freedom and European despotism is a false dichotomy. Better to think of the two as a spectrum with many points within it. And if you still need some American exceptionalism, here. The United States was the largest republic since Rome, one whose basis wasn't faith or nobility. Of this you should take pride.